чуть-чуть хотя бы, если можно. Ага. Да, спасибо.
Они будут говорить, посматривать, приходят от них что-нибудь или нет.
Там уже есть, только без звука.
Есть. Даже где, например, 5 человек, 5 аккаунтов, с одного аккаунта будет 2 человека. 50. Первый из ВКС, первый из ВКС, Набиев Руслан. Может, его, наверное, и записать.
Подключение звука висит и все. У Набиева Руслана.
Да, у него еще звук не такой.
Он, наверное, настраивает.
Да, у него сейчас она не слышала. Своя, в смысле?
На самом деле.
Анна, вы нас слышите? Хорошо, спасибо. Не разум. Делают.
Distinguished colleagues, good afternoon. I'm happy to welcome all the participants of the International Business Week. We are opening our today's session, which is called ESG Agenda as Ground for Business Government Dialogue about Complex Development of Territories. The organizer is the Center for Strategic Research of the Republic of Bashkortostan, and the co-organizer is the UN Global Compact Network, Russia, and the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the CCI of the Republic of Bashkortostan. Today, we have an interesting list of speakers. We'll have a hybrid format, both offline and online. Most of the speakers are offline, but some of them will have online speeches. I'm the moderator. I'm Yelena Ivanovna Dolgih. I'm the managing coordinator of Sustainable Development, a platform of regions and cities under the UN Global Compact, and the CEO of at SGM Agency, which sets the rankings of sustainable development in regions and cities. And if you allow me to do it, let me start with a brief presentation, and now I'll give the floor to our speakers. Could you please demonstrate my presentation? The UN Global Compact Network now encompasses over 85 participants, the representatives of large-scale business, the leaders of the Russian Federation, the NGOs, business associations. And back in August 2022, we launched a platform of sustainable development of regions and the cities of the Russian Federation. And it will be aimed at popularizing the Agenda 2030. We will involve all the stakeholders in this process. We will pay special attention to the monitoring and assessment tools in terms of achieving the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And the regions will also have an extra chance to interact with the UN agencies in Russia, the UN Habitat, and it will also they will also participate in sustainable development conferences. We signed an agreement 2 days ago between the government of Russia and the UN Global Compact National Network. We have also drafted an agreement with the Republic of Bashkortostan, and it is to be signed in the foreseeable future. When it comes to the progress of the Sustainable Development Agenda, let me remind you that it was approved in 2015, and we were truly interested in it before 10 years before it was approved, before Agenda 2030 was approved, and it was large-scale business which was interested in it. Back in 2020, this strategy of low-carbon development was devised till 2050, and also we used tools of green financing and carbon regulation. And this gave an extra impetus to the regions, and they are now actively engaged in deployment of the Sustainable Development Agenda via national products and Sustainable Development Goals. And over the past 2 to 3 years, we have witnessed the increasing popularity of this process. It encompasses 5 regions. They are all resting on sustainable development. Large-scale business is involving SMEs within the framework of supply chains. Sberbank has developed green, eco-friendly procurement. That's the platform of assessing the environmental nature of the agencies which enact into the contracts, and large banks such as Sberbank and Gazprombank and Promsvestbank and VTB are also arriving at agreements with the regions, which incentivize the development of Agenda 2030, and they pay special attention to environmental projects, and there is a reduction in the interest rate while getting funds. It is an open secret that nowadays the Agenda 2030 dedicated to sustainable development goals is not that popular in that region. If you contact the representatives of the civic community what sustainable development goals is all about, SDG is all about, they will tell you that that's the Center for Regional Governance, and it is quite okay because these centers prevail in the Russian Federation. But nowadays, over 20 regions are aware of this Sustainable Development Agenda, and they are implementing ESG transformation into their strategies and into implementation of particular projects. I tried to show it to you, being an enlightened rank and file. I would like to show you how these national products be combined with the SDGs, and these goals coincide with the goals of sustainable development, and almost 100%. And I would like to show you the contribution of particular regions into the Agenda 2030. Not all of the stakeholders are aware of the Agenda 2030. And interestingly, and the Council conducted, the Specialized Council conducted a survey in July 2022. There was a questionnaire dedicated to sustainable development goals with respect to the most important topics. And they paid special attention to sustainable urban development. And when it comes to the second place, it was about economic flourishing and sustainable income, education, jurisdiction, and they are also of prime importance. As for the situation in different federal districts, as for the North Caucasus, what really matters for them is high-quality education. And as for the Far East, it's about the no poverty goal and combating inequality. And when when people ask the population to which issues of sustainable development regions are to be implemented in different regions, one-third responded that it is regional and municipal executives which should pay attention to it, and the business sector accounts for only 3%, and 50% believe that it is the area of responsibility of federal bodies. And when we organized a survey for the Russian business, they also paid special attention to the federal bodies. It's about 75%. The second place was occupied by the business. It's about 40%, and this for the multinational companies, they constitute over 70%. Who is actually the major leader in this region? And more than one-third of the population believes that regional and federal bodies have to perform this policy at the regional level, on this level. As for 89 territories of the Russian Federation, 12 to 15 of them are involved in the Sustainable Development Agenda, and I will also delineate 3 to 4 criteria which will enable us to determine these regions. First and foremost, it is the implementation of sustainable development principles and ESG transformation into strategies. Secondly, it is dedicated to monitoring. Thirdly, it's the green economy development via particular facilities, and low carbon development and aligning effective communication. This slide shows approximately 50% of leading regions. For instance, Lipetsk Oblast was one of the pioneers in launching the strategy which incorporates SDG principles. Rostov Oblast has drafted 2 reports on SDG achievement monitoring. Leningrad Oblast has a strategy of low carbon development. Tatarstan also has specific projects aimed at promoting green economy, and it has also drafted a report on the achievements in the area of sustainable development. And as for Sakhalin district, it has launched a project on regulating the emissions and sinking the GHG emissions. We hope that this region will reach the carbon neutral status, by which standards may a region be guided or a city be guided for promoting the sustainable development agenda. First and foremost, I mean the monitoring of the development, and it is guided by OECD. As for Moscow, it was also involved in this project because it was one of 9 regions of the world. There's also the UN Habitat Initiative on enhancing the welfare of citizens. It also encompasses different ratings, and Moscow participates in 83 of them, and there are 100 of them in total, and approximately 1/3 of them refers to sustainable development. And when it comes to standards of sustainable development, there are more than 10 of them, and 4 of them are approved and translated into Russian, and Moscow got the confirmation of certification in 2 international standards. When it comes to using these tools, Moscow is really a leader. And now I am finalizing my speech. which tools are now available in terms of evaluating the regions of the Russian Federation. We have roughly 35 different rankings and ratings which enable us to assess various aspects of regional development. The most famous one is the National Ranking of Investment Attractiveness, and there are 6 of them in total in Russia. It's about assessing the quality of life, the environmental status, but as far as you can see, they assess different aspects of sustainable development and ESG transformation. And currently, we have 3 rankings and ratings. There is a ranking of ESG regions which is issued by Expert. The grace of ESG criteria was issued by the National Ranking Agency, and there is also a ranking of national development of regions, and it is launched by the agency which I am in charge of. They intersect, but they do not coincide by 100%, and that is related to the technology of assessment. They assess the risks in the area of the environmental and social area and managerial area and governmental area. And the ranking of sustainable development of the regions enables us to assess the equilibrium between them. It's between these 3 components: governance, then social and environmental aspects. And this new platform of the UN Global Compact National Network, it aims to devise a special tool for assessing the contribution of the regions to involvement of sustainable development. We're going to cooperate with Rosstat, with some other organizations, and hopefully you will familiarize yourselves with our takeaways for the next time. Dear colleagues, we have numerous speakers today, and now I would like to give the floor to our first speaker. He is the Minister of Yasman Zulovich Fazirov. He's the Minister of Natural Use, Environmental Use, and in the Republic of Bashkortostan. Yes, our agenda is fairly bulky concerning ESG, and the Ministry of Environmental Resources Use and Environment in the Republic of Bashkortostan is coordinating the work on environmental development and environmental welfare of the population of the region, and it is involved in it. And I would like to focus on several issues. We will be centered around the climate agenda. We have heaps of indicators. There are countless projects in terms of implementing this climate agenda. There are several figures which I would like to delineate. Perhaps I can distinguish decarbonization from other aspects. Decarbonization means that all the emissions of carbon are evaluated, as well as the sources which sink them. As of 2021, the GHG emissions were for over 400 million tons, and 81 tons were synced and are synced, and it means that the industrially developed regions which have petrochemicals and which process organic and non-organic raw materials enables us to believe that emissions of hazardous substances in the atmosphere will exceed the nearby regions or the regions which have a similar economic profile. And here it is necessary to analyze all the factors such as industrial, manufacturing, investment in the PPE, and thus this leads to emissions in manufacturing. The top priority is the first category of facilities. It's about federal and environmental supervision. It's about large oil and gas holdings, and they pollute the air, and the adaptation to the change and to carbon and hydrogen agenda does take place. As for the progress of the region, let me highlight that we have a plan of events to adaptation to climate change, and the work which is ongoing now, it has been performed by Mr. Chernyshenko, the Russian Federation, and it is now also underway in the Republic of Bashkortostan. There is a plan on climate change. There is a list of organizations which are deploying these environmental events, which activities which decrease this load. And when it comes to decarbonization, It's about protecting the air and decontamination of the air, and it is against the revamp of manufacturing, but all the large companies which generate waste, they should develop comprehensive environmental decisions by January 2023, and Svetlana Gennadievna Rodionova has always focused on them. And this complies with the unstable geopolitical situation and geopolitical situation, geoeconomical situation. But these decisions were postponed to 2025, and this lets the enterprises to invest in manufacturing facilities rather than in environmental activities, and implementation of these comprehensive goals enabled us to think of various names of ESG agenda, or it's about the environmental and economic activities of enterprises. In our view, it is necessary to assess it thoroughly. As for the situation with air pollution, the projects which were presented in front of Mr. Chernyshenko, we have three major directions. We are actively involving the oil university, our researchers which are conducting this work. We are interacting with a group of researchers. There are lots of questions in terms of implementation of this project and its application. We have to establish the central competences and carry out different experiments. And these were our breakthrough projects, and they were demonstrated before the deputy head of the government of the Russian Federation. There are some amendments in the federal law number 34 on conducting the experiments on reducing GHG emissions in different territories, including the Republic of Bashkortostan. And as for the climate agenda, when the Minister of Environment makes a presentation, he can tell you about the control and supervision and activities and the load on the environment and the amounts. And here I would like to listen to the colleagues who deal with it, who deal with the social sphere, and because we are not a regulatory and supervisory board, although we respond to emergencies in terms of forecasting different emissions, waste generation, in terms of environmental development and environmental expert review in the region. But I may highlight that the national project called Environment is our top priority. As pertains to the climate agenda, it is not at the forefront. Perhaps I'm mistaken and you may correct me, but still I do communicate with the colleagues from the Ministry of Environment of the Russian Federation and with the design office, the Clean Air. It's called the Clean Air, and it is headed by Maxim Vladimirovich Korakov. We do not prioritize that. We have some top priorities. It's about elimination of all landfills in Russia, and different hazardous facilities as well. This boosts further economic development because clean territories are to become development territories and rather than the source for waste generation. When we discuss the ESG agenda or the climate agenda, we're always referring to strategic documents, because what we need is equilibrium between the environment and the economy. There is no point in discussing environment in isolation from the economic parameters. And based on deflators oriented on our strategy, it is not that expedient. When we're talking about the balanced environmental and economic development within the ESG agenda, when we touch upon all the industries and all the activities of the economy, we definitely pursue the maximum balance. Definitely, there is the supervisory hurdle. When it determines two directions, we may act preventively, and we may avoid the violation of the environmental law, or we may cause maximum detriment in order to suspend the violation of environmental law. And I am in favor of the equilibrium, and in my opinion, this ESG agenda complies with this balance, with this equilibrium. And today I would like to address both climate change but also industrial manufacturing changes and waste issues. It is not fortuitous that Kongresс-Бюро told us that our humankind will not die in the atom disaster, but what will hurdle us is waste. We have to minimize the waste formation, be it emissions, air pollution, solid waste or liquid waste. And I would like to repurpose our approach to handling the ESG agenda. And today it's not the topic, not our major topic, although we may discuss the Republic of Bashkortostan, but for this reason we have to convene all the members of the government so that we could address each and every direction. We are responding to the challenges set by the head of the Republic of Bashkortostan, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Bashkortostan. Today we got a message where we got a benchmark on developing the region for the short term, and the major message was the welfare of the population. We are focusing on it. And in this regard, dear colleagues, I would like to finalize my presentation, and then we will participate in the discussion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for a very interesting presentation. I'm completely with you that sustainable development is much broader than ESG, and we should look at balance between ecology, social, and government. Efficiency of communication is something that we aspire after. I have one question and one suggestion. The question is, did you study the opportunity of achieving carbon neutrality for Bashkortostan? And the suggestion is, would you like to participate next year in COP28? Because this year in Sharm el-Sheikh there was a big delegation of the national delegation of global agreement. Those were mainly representatives of large Russian business, Moscow in particular. We will be happy to invite you. It will be held in autumn, as you know, in the United Arab Emirates. Well, indeed, we reviewed the carbon balance. We developed a list of events to adapt to the climate. This lag of 10 million tons is something approximate. I'm not saying that every year we have 10 tons of carbon flying in the air. No, that's not so. Because the climate system in general is disbalanced in any region. There is a source, and the sources are concentrated in 3 large industrial cities: Ufa, Sterlitamak, and Salavat. It's not a secret. I would divide this question in 2. In terms of carbon footprint, we address Salavat, Sterlitamak, and Ufa enterprises which generate waste. Me and my colleagues from Nature Control Administration, because their involvement is also huge, Clean Air Project, and other decarbonization projects, they pass through this institution. And they are very thoroughly reviewed by the colleagues from the Nature Control Administration. And with each enterprise which generates a lot of waste, we discuss the measures of nature protection measures and mitigating negative footprint, some preventive measures in terms of environmental protection, allowing to prevent catastrophes. There is such a thing as negative natural conditions, and almost every day this is updated. The law says if we set on a certain day that the conditions, natural conditions, are negative, it means that the rate of production of a certain enterprise should be decreased to the minimum. I will give you an example. In Sterlitamak and Salavat, the restricted days out of 365 are 200. So how could we possibly ensure stable development of economy of Bashkortostan. The companies I mentioned are the largest taxpayers. There are about 40 or 50,000 people employed there. If we take a multiplicative effect, this means that it's equal to 2 municipalities. How to ensure balance between economy, stable production volume, capacity, and investment in the main capital, and with the decrease in the carbon footprint, we're still talking, we're still discussing. Of course, we need to introduce filters, dust filters, gas filters. Here, again, as an answer to your question, we need to find balance between the production capacity and the amount of waste, because it's not possible to develop otherwise. Thank you so much. I would like to give the floor to Lenara Ivanova, the Minister of Labor and Family of Bashkortostan and Social Security. Please share your ideas about social agenda. You have the floor. Thank you so much, Yelena. In fact, ESG has become trendy. Every event has ESG subjects on the list, on the program. In our republic, those 3 letters are not mentioned very often. And I think we have seen that in your ratings and figures you showed. But what is important is how to arrange public policy. And I think, in my opinion, it is quite balanced here, both from the point of view of social development. If you look as SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, out of 17, about a third is devoted to social life. I'm not mentioning education, which is in my scope of responsibility, our Ministry of Family, Labor and Social Development. So we should look in the future with confidence, make sure all the families have enough income, and if something happens, if someone receives injury or disability, those people should be helped, and that's what we do. What Niyaz said, I would like to support him here. Their institution is more supervisory. I think our task of the government is to regulate, to establish laws, norms, and regulations to make sure that those goals are always on the top of the list, in the forefront of our attention. I think that our daily agenda, our daily action list includes all that you mentioned. I will give an example. Mr. Khabirov said yesterday that we should protect labor rights, some justice, some justified wages, proper wages. And if we rate companies from the given standpoint, it pushes them to demonstrate their capabilities to protect their manpower, increase salaries, making sure that they match with the market. And actually, ecology and environment, it's a broad term which could be applied to all the aspects. I welcome all the participants of our today's session, and I think, like never before, it is very current, it is very vital. The latest events, which started in February, made us stressed. And I thought that our institution, our administration, is not something that will be paid attention to. But I can say that the agenda completely relates to the sphere of family and social development. Well, when I listened to the president, I was comforted because I saw that we will be developing in this area. And you've mentioned cities, sustainable cities. In our republic, last year we started a project called. I will not give my presentation about my work results because it will take months. Just yesterday, we made some conclusions. We made some follow-up. A project called a city friendly to children and population. We mentioned that the ratio of the birth rate, unfortunately, is not balanced. We wish we had more children, but the birth rate in some municipalities decreased drastically, and city environment should be safe and environmentally friendly. We rate them. We take 28 factors. The rest we just interview people. 79,000 people participated in the polling, with families with infants, and teenagers could also participate independently. We used cloud technologies. It was the questionnaire was available in a cloud, and we arranged feedback. We provided that to the cities, and we said, if there is some room for improvement. For example, the interviewers said that they don't have interest to studies at school, and so the decision makers, they can use it to make the right decisions. This is how it works. Thank you very much. I wish success to everyone. Lenara, thank you very much. I am completely with you in terms of the initiative of Bashkortostan, in terms of efficient communications with the population. Feedback is very important. Sustainable development, SDG number 17, means partnership and efficient communication. I think that something is underrated. I would like to mention that I couldn't, unfortunately, demonstrate all the results, and Bashkortostan is in the 30th place, and I think by 2025 you will manage to raise by 5 points. In 2020, in COVID year, the main challenges were in healthcare, but Bashkortostan is doing very well in this case. I would like to give the floor to our speaker who joins us online, Ruslan Nabiev, the head of ESG Competence Center, Corporate University under the government of Nizhny Novgorod region. As you know, Nizhny Novgorod, together with Sber company, they developed ESG profile for Nizhny Novgorod region, and they established a competence center. Ruslan, please share your experience in this sense. Greetings, dear colleagues. I would like to share our experience in terms of ESG transformation in Nizhny Novgorod. Yes, speaking about last year, we actively worked with Sberbank and a number of other companies, and we prepared a detailed report which includes about 22 indexes of development of our region. It was a huge work, and it has become a basis for a pilot project of ESG transformation, and it served as a foundation for ESG Competence Center under the auspices of administration of Nizhny Novgorod. One of the main goals is efficient social and environmental development of the region. Here you can see a chart of our competence center. These are the priorities of development, improvement areas. You can see additional E standing for economy. We think that all of our projects, they should give financial effect. Any project should make investment into the economy of the region, otherwise they will have negative effect. Here you can see the roadmap of a practice lab of ESG competence. Here we rely on international and domestic experience, in particular Russian regions, Moscow. We process requests, we collect feedback from business, we do polling, questionnaires, we study new ESG technologies, biogas, alternative energy, for example. We actively take into account the specifics of our region in terms of design concepts. We actively participate with the government. Speaking about cooperation, the administration of Nizhny Novgorod region concluded a number of contracts agreements, for example, with Sberbank. We prepared a report. Also, we concluded a contract with Delovaya Rossiya, Business Russia, School of Economy, and RANEPA organization. And let me speak about our projects more. First, we made a consultation report where we showed all the priorities in terms of ESG. For example, E-block means introduction of digital technologies, addressing fires, mitigating fires, improving potential of the region, and trying to avoid illegal cutting of wood, controlling that, and researching opportunities for the development of private business. We started a number of projects with the School of Economy with two sub-projects. Number one is development of investment projects for the 3 municipalities of the region. We have 3 pilots, and we started 2 projects on their basis. Number one is an investment project based on ESG. Number 2 is a new system of rating of municipalities. The logic was that both of the projects, an investment project and the rating of sustainable development, they are intertwined. And based on the results of implementation of those projects, we may see the effect which each of the project does for a municipality. Volunteer ESG, another project. We made a base of volunteers, more than 100 plus persons, activists, who are trying to promote and implement ESG agenda, supporting all the activities, active interaction with business and population. ESG volunteers is a very powerful tool of implementing ESG agenda. And further on, we're planning to develop it and get more people involved. We developed 2 packages of recommendations. Package 1, we had 13 all-Russian classification standards, and we prepared recommendations for business, how to simplify the transition to ESG. Further on, these recommendations will be taken into account when forming the measures of support for private businesses. Also, we introduced 3 programs to support private business. Number 1 is to provide trustees for the businesses. If we provide measures of support worth of 35 million rubles, micro loans for SMEs which implement ESG agenda. Here we provide about 5 million each with the APR of 2%. And we provide loans to the production enterprises to upgrade their production to reduce the carbon footprint. We allocate about 50 million rubles for that, together with the treasury of Russian Federation, and we assessed the sustainable development and strategies of social development. We analyzed a lot of indexes, and we chose those which are most developed: SDG 11, SDG 9, SDG 8, SDG 4. These are the sustainable development goals which are actively implemented, and they are embraced in our standards. It's a great potential because in future, when we begin implementing development strategies, we could address that in our norms and standards. We prepared a catalog of projects of charity organizations. It includes 52 organizations. This catalog is available at the website of our organization. It allowed us to systematize, to gather together all the information for potential investors and mercenaries, mecenates. Together with Sberbank, we started a project about the ecology tracks based on 2 GIS project, one of the navigation problems. Together with Moscow State University ESG Lab, we developed a ranking of sustainable development of tourism and methodology of sustainable tourism of territories and collective accommodation opportunities in the regions of Russian Federation. And this rating is already actively implemented in the regions, and I hope it will be improved in 2023. We conducted a series of training programs for municipal workers. We engulfed about 40 municipalities. We had around 300 plus students. We trained the students in ecological behavior and waste collection. We arranged hackathons for the youth. And it was interesting to adapt ESG into the Russian language. We got all the institutions of the region involved to understand how we can possibly adapt, transcreate the ESG terms in the Russian language. Also, I would like to say that just 2 weeks ago, we had a very large forum dedicated to ESG, which was attended by many colleagues from Moscow, including Mr. Abramchenko, Mr. Grigorenko, Sharunov, Medyakhin, and a number of others. They are the active promoters of ESG agenda in Russia. Our region, Nizhny Novgorod, actually tries to unite other regions to work on the projects together. We are open for a dialogue. We are ready to cooperate. Thank you so much. Ruslan, thank you so much. Very interesting. I would like to remind our colleagues that the course of auditory, the Chamber of Auditory, the Court of Auditing actually is actively involved, and we will share those results. And it's great you showed how SDGs are reached, and SDG 11 was in place number 1. And I would like to give the floor to Dilara Sadikova, the head of international cooperation at Dom RF. Please, not more than 5 or 6 minutes. Yes.
Спасибо. Собственно,
Well, today I will tell about how sustainable municipal environment is formed and about tools. We prepared the standard of complex development of territories, one of the first of our tools to make cities more comfortable. Russia, unfortunately, still has approach to territory development which survived since Soviet times, but unfortunately it's already outdated. It doesn't satisfy all the demands of the city residents. There is a program to improve the accommodation, but there is a lack of greeneries, there is a lack of culture centers, and it's very vital, it's very urgent. There is a lot of residential construction going on, but the environment, the infrastructure is lagging behind. We looked at the world, we looked at the global experience, and we looked at the mixed framework, multifunctionality, and when implementing those priorities, these are the advantages. We have low CO2 emissions, decreased by 30%. We have less expenses for city infrastructure, and the income of the budget, public budget of the city improves. Also, we develop design projects for public spaces. We have 42 projects in total implemented. The design project includes street profile, safe interconnections between bicycle, pedestrian, and car routes to accelerate traffic, to avoid traffic jams. We also form a design code of the city. For example, advertisements, navigation, signs, directions, city furniture, outdoors furniture. Ideal examples which match the criteria of the standards are the residential complex. Some residential complexes in Novosibirsk, Tyumen, Yekaterinburg, they very well match with the standards. Also, we provide an opportunity for architects to go through a free of charge leadership workshop, and it may be in offline or online format. Our second tool of sustainable development of municipalities is a national standard which was developed lately. It's called Green Multi-Apartment Residential Buildings. Indeed, the need for certification of green buildings is huge. It's very urgent. That's why we developed a national standard based on international experience of such systems as BREEAM, LEED, DGNB. We use those systems as the basis. And the standard that we proposed is to substitute foreign standards which are not valid anymore in Russia. And we tried to look at all the stages of cycles. We are planning to develop green standards for capital construction of residential buildings, permanent structures, and service. There are several items which are obligatory, meaning finishing of an apartment, noise, impact. When we assess buildings against GOST standards, we use DOM-RF system, the Unified Information System on Housing and Construction. Their energy efficiency class is also taken into account. In December last year, we marked all the buildings, we rated all the buildings against national standard criteria, and 6 buildings received a positive appraisal and a status of green, environmentally friendly building. We have 7 pilot projects in the cities of Russia, and we also provide trainings for auditors who assess buildings against GOST criteria. Next year, we will have a program for consultants of project and construction companies. And in 2024, we will have a professional development program. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dilara. I believe that it was of paramount importance to familiarize ourselves with the national standard, which has recently been approved, because actually, as for the situation in Russia, not everyone is aware of it and no one applies international standards. And I hope that you'll have more opportunities for incentivizing green construction, and I wish you success in terms of fostering this the EU space, and you have to harmonize these standards. I hope that you have these opportunities. Yes, we're planning to do it. Thank you very much. We are now moving forward, and now I'm giving the floor to Anna Eduardovna Morozova, who is the deputy head of KB Strelka City Anthropology Center. We would like to talk about it. We have to assess them, and there are two leaders, and I give the floor to you, and it is dedicated to urban environment assessment. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Perhaps you cannot see me. Can you? We can see your presentation, but we cannot see you personally. No.
Здравствуйте еще раз.
Good morning once again.
Сейчас мы видим.
Now we can see both you and your presentation. Is it the full screen mode? Yes, it is. Is it quite all right? Just a second.
Да, еще раз добрый день.
Yes, good morning once again. I'm happy to welcome all of you. We are now proceeding with your topic, Yelena Ivanovna, as well as the one of the previous speaker. And I would like to dwell upon the social and environmental area and how are they intertwined, and which experience has KB Strelka stockpiled in this direction. I would like to show you some statistical figures. In fact, the key industries of the economy of Russia are the most detrimental ones to the Russian environment. When it comes to the transport contribution to export and to the tax component, the export goods and tax flow are related to metallurgy and fossil fuel production, but when it comes to man-cost effect, it is normally caused by the areas of national economies, such as redistribution of electric power, gas and water. It is related to water, sewage, to emissions in the atmosphere and GHG emissions. However, the key distribution of sponsorship for environmental and social events in Russia accounts for the commercial sector. It constitutes approximately 69%. As for the governmental sector, it accounts for approximately 18%. And as for the leaders, it is the oil and gas industry, the mining industry, and the metallurgical industry. I have noticed that Elena Ivanovna told us that 62% of companies are sustaining this direction, and they are so-called drivers in this realm. That is why it is worth mentioning that the amount of means is not equal to the effect generated from using them. It is not right to believe that the more funds we allocate for some social and environmental programs, the more effective they turn out to be. This doesn't mean that they will be implemented at the full scale. As for investment in the environmental area, it is always a set of activities. And as far as we know, environment ecology is broad-based. It is an ecosystem. And some elements of the ecosystems are available. We have some negative footprint in the city. We do monitor it, and it will not be effective to invest in soil protection or biodiversity protection, and that's it. We always invest in comprehensive projects, and it looks much better than it did in the past. Let me deliver several examples of practical implementation. We can see an unsuccessful example which failed, and it is on the left-hand side. It was in Khabarovsk Krai. Due to forest logging, they decided to plant trees there, but back then the funds were allocated for this program, but the activities were planned ahead. The roadmap was built, but there was the thick, dense vegetation here, and this was not considered while implementing this project. and this was also cut, and the new trees were planted here, but they were not present. They did not grow perfectly, and this was offset. There is also a good example, Salatvala, and it was a gradual one, and it demonstrated fantastic results. It took them 5 years to monitor it, and the air quality improved significantly at the cinder dump, and 104 hectares of the territory were restored, and this resulted in the quality of life in the population. As for the social sphere, we also adhere to some principles which are worth highlighting. The first one is as follows. The social infrastructure has to meet the needs of different user groups. We do not only accentuate the retired people or the children only, or some vulnerable layers of the society. The social infrastructure is always a conglomerate of the user groups who may be present, and they show interest in being there. The social infrastructure should be inscribed in the tissue of the city. We do not construct the infrastructure at the remote areas on the outskirts, because what is needed is a transport network, and the interaction with infrastructure is also required. We're living under complex geopolitical conditions, and the world is ever evolving, because this infrastructure is to be flexible and adjustable, because it has to meet the new era challenges, and it has to adapt to the users' demands. It should be eco-friendly, and its environmental footprint, should be negligible. We should use different energy efficiency solutions, and it has to consider the local identity, and it is to be inscribed with the local community, and it has to be in the cohesion with the local culture. Under 1 minute is left, sorry. Okay, let me provide some more examples. That was the perfect implementation of a project in Dagestan, and there was a failed attempt to build the infrastructure in Khanty-Mansiysk Autonomous District. I would also like to highlight that this full-fledged approach enhances the effects from the activities implemented. The natural capital source and the economic and the human factors are also being promoted. There's a fantastic example of Nord Stream 2. Some offsetting events were organized at the deforestation area, and they also fostered local communities. They invested them in developing them, because they sustained the silts and the natural reserves, and we are adhering to these directions. And when we perform the master plans, we are focused on social infrastructure, residential accommodation, environment, tourism, and that's kind of an aggregation, a conglomerate. Thank you very much. Let me stress that this comprehensive approach is relevant to environmental and social programs, which may operate perfectly only in cohesion, and it is always facilitating the development of these directions. They are intertwined and interrelated, and therefore much less funds are spent, because one solution may apply to several problems. Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. If we have more similar projects in Russia, we'll be happy to come to any part of Russia. Our country is immense, and we would like to relish being in Ufa or somewhere else. This city is spectacular. I have been to many European cities, but I believe that Ufa is much better than all the European cities, and I am sincere. I've been to Ufa, and I was in Ufa 40 years ago, and this image has changed dramatically. And now I'm going to give the floor to Daria Alexeyevna Gulaeva, who is responsible, who is the head of sustainable development of Association of Russian Clusters, Technical Parks, and SEZs of Russia, and the role of technology parks and clusters in Russia in the current situation is vital because we are focusing on import substitution and they have proven their effectiveness. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Good afternoon, Elena Ivanovna. Thank you for giving the floor to me. And today I will touch upon sustainable development in the context of industrial infrastructure, and namely the implementation of infrastructural sites aimed at attaining the SDGs. Well, the infrastructural industrial sites encompass industry parks, technical parks, and special economic zones. Their number is always enhancing, both in the Russian Federation and worldwide. And this induces the competition for raising investment. It is cutthroat competition, and the winners, as for the winners, it will be the platforms which will consider the challenges of the global economy, including the imperative of sustainable development. In this regard, in 2019, UNCTAD has proposed the major principles for this organization, for these infrastructural industrial sites and platforms. We have to follow these principles in order to achieve the sustainable development goals, thereby increasing our investment attractiveness. Here are three major principles. The first one is attracting investment and implementation of the projects which comply with the sustainable development goals. The second major principle is introduction of ESG standards and disclosure of non-financial reporting. And the third principle is spreading the ESG principles far beyond infrastructural platforms. Here are the three fundamental principles by which we should be guided for enhancing the investment attractiveness of these platforms. This slide demonstrates the detailed methodology of deployment of infrastructural platform model, and it is also aimed at attaining sustainable development goals. The first one is residential policy, and here you can see the major criteria which the governing company may apply to its future residents for aspiring to SDG goals. As to SDGs, it may be high ESG rating. The project may be verified as the green one, and the activity of an investor may be a priority sector, which has a lot to do with SDGs. There was also a set of these directions devised, and these are priority development. The major principle, the second one, is implementation of ESG standards and your local territory, and it holds true for the governing company. First and foremost, it's about the ESG audit. Secondly, it's about regular issuance of sustainable development reports. And later on, when it comes to developing this strategy of sustainable development of the government company, the infrastructural platform, strategic sessions are conducted for each direction. The third point is the policy of spreading ESG principles and interaction with stakeholders. This slide shows the data on the residential policy. It is more detailed. As for the fundamental principle of the introduction of ESG standards, the Republic of Bashkortostan became the pilot region on implementing the sustainable development principles at the infrastructural industrial sites this year. It was part of the large working group, and the members of this group are shown on the slide. This standard of non-financial reporting was developed for infrastructural industrial platforms, and it was implemented in Ufimsky Industrial Park and Alga Special Economic Zone. Here you can see an overview on the standard of non-financial reporting, and it was based on Rosstat indicators as DG local version. The major reporting indicated revised by UNCTAD and SASB standard, as well as it's also a standard of non-financial reporting. A sustainability accounting standards board. Here are the pioneers in Russia who underwent the training program in accordance with ESG agenda, and it was provided by our partner organization. It's the Institute of Economics of Knowledge, and these projects were presented in May 2022. And to recap, let me dwell upon some other platforms which have already introduced the ESG principles in their performance. First and foremost, it is the Republic of Bashkortostan, Ufimsky Industrial Park and Alga Special Economic Zone. Another special economic zone is called Moscow Technopolis. It is also located in Moscow. St. Petersburg Special Economic Zone has also implemented it, as well as the another special economic zone in Moscow region, and Taliati Special Economic Zone in Samara Oblast. Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind attention. I am ready to share my presentation and the standard of non-financial reporting for infrastructural platforms, and we are open for dialogue. Thank you very much. Daria, thank you very much. I would like to give the floor to the representative of the Republic of Tatarstan, Marina Gennadievna Gepifantseva, who is the deputy head of the Investment Development Agency of the Republic of Tatarstan. Tatarstan is one of the leaders. There are 10 leaders on implementing the ESG agenda. I would like to familiarize myself with their achievements, as well as the audience. And since Marina Gennadievna is joining us, let me highlight that Bashkortostan is a leader in some directions in terms of this agenda, according to Daria's words. And it is of paramount importance to promote it at the level of the government of the Republic. We need a unification of expertise and record of achievements in the implementation of sustainable development goals. This will enable us to be a leader, and Russia and 5 territories of the Russian Federation have implemented that, and this will incentivize us. Marina Gennadievna, the floor is yours. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Can you hear me? We can hear you properly. Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me at this fantastic event. Thank you, Yelena Nikolaevna, for your good words. With respect to Tatarstan, it was very interesting to listen to my colleagues from Bashkortostan, from other regions. It is a pleasure for me to know something new, and it is only possible during the sessions because we're always busy in this hustle and bustle. And as for other regions, I've heard of some different sustainable development centers. And when it comes to our republic, it is the area of responsibility of the agency of the innovative development. Unless this center is present, it is our agency which will deal with it. Can you see my presentation? Yes, we can see your presentation. Yes, that's great. Let us move on to the agenda. The Republic of Tatarstan is a space for humans. First and foremost, we have corresponding locations, and we apply different kinds of waste as facilities. Lots of companies are accountable for sustainable development, and you have already covered that. It's one of our best practices. I have fueled my presentations in accordance with these principles. And now I would like to dig deeper into our presentation, which was represented in the UN headquarters. It was a very interesting experience of drafting this presentation. And you can see the cover. You can see children who hold balloons rather than plants. That was the first time when we faced the UN and Sustainable Development Goals. How can we transform what the grams, and how can we convey these complicated messages and intricate messages when we talk about grams or rubles or some other units in social terms? And we have to convey this message in a clear way. This year I tried to deal with the local SDG indicators, and I was truly impressed that many indicators, many are high level in terms of achieving our goals. There are top 10 ones out of 175, which are enumerated in the national set. It was a truly rewarding experience. And now let us move on to particular ESG. We dealt with this issue. What is it all about? And why do we actually require it? How can we apply it for investment? There was an event held 1 week ago with a financial broker, and I asked him whether this green funding is applicable, and they said that there is no wow effect from it. Among the mass share of investors, it is implemented by the enterprises which are playing overseas and that in accordance with the requirement, and there are several organizations which do it. For instance, you have mentioned it in the ESG rating in terms with the Republic. Here are some cases in point of particular enterprises. And let me say from the outset that we have to monitor the crux. Who has done it not only but in words, but also in deeds? It is Kamaz which has issued these green bonds. Here are some screenshots on the sustainable development of MOX, Moscow Exchange, and Kamaz is one of 18 companies which has issued these green bonds. And remarkably, you can see it on the website of MOX. You can find the reports of the way they used these green bonds. I hope that you have managed to click onto the QR code where you can read it, you can have a look on this report. Hopefully it is visible on the screen, but you may open the report as it is and look. The company reports that this means raised thanks to green bonds were spent for the green products. There were electric buses for Moscow, and it is specified in the report that they have manufactured 350 of them in 2021. And according to the current data, we can witness 700 electric buses so far, and out of 1,000 of them which circulate across Moscow and Tatarstan. And that's how this product is being applied. You can see on the right-hand side that they make a report on the use of electric buses manufactured thanks to this tool. And this helped them ameliorate the situation with waste in Moscow. When this event is conducted with the Russian Association to the UN contribution, Moscow reps are the first ones to be speakers. And I would like to tell you that it is wonderful that this electric buses manufactured in Tatarstan circulate across Moscow. This interregional cooperation is not made public, but it is a true collaboration. And to sum up, I would like to emphasize that our topic of sustainable development goals promotion is being handled, and the youth direction is applying it. You are aware of the UN models, and they are headed by KFUs. And then we also have the Academy of Youth Diplomacy, which participates in each international summit called Russia Islamic World. They have as an SDG zone where lectures and events are arranged. They have some competitions and quizzes, and you may get awards there, and they're all eco-friendly, definitely. And they are gained for right answers to questions. As for the last experience, there was a direct broadcast with the Academy of Youth Diplomacy. There were approximately 100 viewers, and it accommodated 45 representatives of this academy, and they were not aware of the fact that these documents are available. They were not aware of the national set, as well of the presentation and some other issues. I've sent these links to the Telegram chat, and they were posted in the VK website, and I asked them how this partnership can be estimated, because there are lots of events and where we meet, where we present the best practices without paying attention to figures, thinking that it is quite seamless. I have shown you one indicator where the Republic of Bashkortostan is not a leader, and it is an extraordinary situation for us. And they sent us the emoji showing that it is deplorable. When we conduct this work, that it is necessary to take into account the best practices as well as the crux, the particular documents, and to keep the finger on your pulse while implementing it. I haven't shown you this slide, but still, GIMO University presented their own rating the day before yesterday, and it is also about the implementation of SDGs in different regions. We were not leaders. We decided to raise this issue. We will send it to the different requests to different ministries and agencies. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Hopefully it was interesting for you.
Thank you, Marina. Indeed, it was very interesting. First of all, thank you for touching upon the subject of actual involvement of all the stakeholders, including the youth, in attainment sustainable development goals. Also, you talked about green financing. Indeed, Moscow has become the first region which issued green bonds. And it's great to see that you demonstrated some examples of cooperation of this kind between Moscow and Tatarstan. Yes, it's Tatarstan that manufactures electric buses which commute in Moscow. I would like to give the floor to Julia Larionova, leading specialist of corporate social liability of Blagoveshchensk United Metallurgical Plant. We already said that, unfortunately, production enterprises, are the generators of the most amount of waste. Your company is among the top 50 companies. Please share your experience in terms of ESG policy. Greetings. I will tell about ESG politics of OMK in general. We are in Blagoveshchensk. I am in charge of social programs. ESG is one of the priorities. When working with manpower, we promote our ESG agenda also among the clients and vendors. We have a corporate social responsibility program. The company tries to improve the quality of life and social development of the region where the enterprise is located. Their families live here, and several 100,000 persons. We implement our strategy gradually, stage by stage, with the dialogue with all the stakeholders, and we use best global practices. We've been implementing the program for several years, and we managed to implement a model of cooperation between society, authorities, and population. ESG policy of OMK includes three main areas. Number one is environment. Minimize impact of production on the environment, cutting on waste, clean air. The company has ecology volunteer program to jointly serve environmental programs. Number two, social. Cooperation with local communities, and we assess charity work based on several items, and also we cooperate with local population. Number three is corporate management, transparency in terms of decision making, abiding by the current legislation. Starting from 2050, OMK company holds a competition of social and charity programs called UMK Partnership, aimed at improving the quality of life where the company is present by solving social issues, helping for the region to develop, solve social programs. We are in line with ESG trends. We use SROI, return of investment principles. Here you can see that partnership means cooperation between business, authorities, and society. We get involved, volunteers. The volunteer movement is developing rapidly. We have more and more volunteers. OMK is a good example of systematic approach to the issue. We have motivational programs promoting leadership, cooperation at the level of administrative authorities, developing human potential, In the slide, you can see the results of competition called OMK Partnership in 2022. We chose 206 projects. 87 projects came from non-commercial organization. 40 cities participated. We had 119 volunteers. In Благовещенsk, we also supported 15 projects. In total, we supported 70 initiatives during the presence of the company in the regions. The projects are various. They include sports, facility development, child care, elderly care, tourism. We entered the acceleration program on industrial tourism. Just today we have one on the event going on at the moment. Ecology movement. This is one of the sustainable trends of development. We treat environment responsibly. We are integrated in the global ESG agenda through global initiatives. This year, we started the environmental volunteer movement. It's the next step of OMK, solving social and environmental issues in cities and villages where our employees live. In the slide that you can see that this year we supported 55 environmental initiatives. We allocated 7.8 million rubles in the form of grants. It's not a big amount, but we're planning to further implement this initiative next year. Except for OMK partnership, the United Metallurgy Company, in the past 6 years, we are developing social private entrepreneurship. It's called Find Your Business, Start Your Own Business. And it's valid in Nizhny Novgorod, Blagoveshchensk area. We provide employment alternatives for the people where the company is present. Social businessmen, these are the participants of the program. They have huge potential to use additional financing, which we provide. Actually, the winners of those programs, they received additional grants. They can scale up their project, supported as part of our business, as part of our programs. In 2021, we assessed the program, Start Your Own Business, using SRI method. The payback from the program was equal to 144 million rubles, and the economy results 56 million rubles. If we look at figures, that between 2016 and 2022, we supported 248 projects of private entrepreneurs. 446 workplaces were established as part of the project. We allocated 52 million rubles to the participants. In total, we have 70 projects of this kind, and 250 persons took part in the training programs, not just the winners, but before making your application, we were putting the people through a training. Even if they didn't win a grant, the training was beneficial. They could participate in other similar competitions. The program consists of 3 blocks: educational, grant, and number 3, the winners, we get them together in our acceleration program. Thank you very much for your attention. Yulia, thank you very much. I would like to give the floor to our colleagues from Gazprom Bank, the head of digital transformation department of electronic trade platform, Timur Manukyan, and the head of strategic partnership of electronic trade platform, Sergei Panov. Greetings, dear colleagues. Evgeny Panov, sorry. Dear ladies and gentlemen, sorry, we can hear you, but we can't see you.
Все, мы вас видим. А презентацию видно, коллеги?
Да, презентацию тоже видно. У вас 5 минут.
We can see you okay, your slides. Thank you very much for the organizers for giving the floor. Yes, let's cut to the chase. And
Огромное спасибо предыдущим, собственно, спикерам.
I would like to thank the previous speakers, and we are ready for cooperation. And
События. Наша электронно-торговая площадка.
at the end of March, our platform received the status of import substitution service. We also actively participate in Sakhalin experiment on attaining carbon neutrality. And to prove trust of our government, we began to work systematically in a practical approach. We are adopting the concept of accelerated industrial development, which is based on the mechanism of innovational policy and human capital, using breakthrough domestic technologies and standards. Now we are implementing and solidifying national economic security and technology independence of Russian Federation. We are developing process keys to start to build next generation products and looking for critical niches for them. Timur? Yes. To address the given challenges, we started a unified digital platform of product control and consumption of industrial products, which is based on green technologies and data verification. MDS platform also it includes catalogs of industrial products and includes available technologies for the analysis of domestic production facilities and capacities. Here you can see a certain number of services which we develop. It includes technology consulting, low carbon technology consulting, and straight through end-to-end technologies. To implement all the tasks, our digital platform is based. We have catalogs of industrial products, as I have said, commercial products. It's a single window, one-point contact system. It will help to address the digital divide and will open access to data for all the stakeholders, public orders, and it will help to attain the target index which was set by the government. President's Decree 666 with low carbon emission by 2050, which was regulated, which was set by the president. And we have an inventories, we have catalogs of industrial products, and we also assessed the carbon footprint. This will serve as a driver to attain low carbon economy. Again, our platform has a certain number of services dedicated to various tasks.
Сократим чуть-чуть презентацию. Перейду к следующему слайду. В данный момент
Currently, we interact with 30 systematic associations which support us. Also, we interact with all the leading schools, for example, Gubkin University. Together we have a project on test polygons to certify low-carbon equipment and new products which will replace sanctioned products. With Plekhanov Institute, we have a joint program of confined cycle. Also, in terms of Sakhalin experiment, we will implement the pyrolysis heater project. We will locate them in polygons and we will recycle waste with low emissions, and this will be included in the general recycling program of the country. With Moscow State University, we have a program of greenery for Crimea, growing plants. We also cooperate with all the accredited, verified international associations such as Verica, institutions which allow to implement complex, to resolve complex tasks in various areas of ESG agenda, low carbon consulting, and so on. Regarding opportunities, our goal to create a unified information system which will allow to control data, to manage data, to have a unified identification of products, to unify and standardize formats of cooperation between producers and government. We will integrate our system into the mainstream governmental IT systems. In terms of ESG, we help our domestic producers to make an inventory of direct and indirect waste of carbon gases, to calculate footprint, to calculate how to cut, to design how to cut on emissions, carbon neutral products, decarbonization, to prepare reports on sustainable development, and to develop recommendations how to improve ESG rating to be eligible for discounted financing, and again, to cut on the negative influence on the environment. Also, we signed an agreement with Contour company, and we started a separate trend how to sell carbon items, which actually in line with our climatic projects. We would like to become a non-exchange environment. Colleagues, as a conclusion, I would like to say we are supported by the upper and the lower chamber of our government, and we participate in various roundtables, work groups on import substitution, carbon neutral and low carbon development of our country. We are ready to work with your republic, with the ministries in all the areas to resolve the issues of the regions are facing in a comprehensive way with all the necessary results. Thank you very much for your attention. Should you have any questions, please, we're free, we're open for cooperation. Good luck. Thank you very much, Timur. Yes, unfortunately, we are approaching the end of our conference. I would like to give the floor to the counselor of this, to Ibragimov Ural, advisor of the Center for Strategic Research of the Republic of Bashkortostan. Let's listen to the solutions which Ural offers. Greetings, dear colleagues. I'm very happy to meet all of you. Thank you for having me. I would like to say that today we could have spoken with the ministry together by concentrating all the efforts of municipalities and institutions to understand how to interact, how to build. We talked about SDG 11 today. As part of that, we are looking at a pilot project, how to interact with municipalities. That's what Niyaz mentioned today, Ufa, Sterlitamak, and Salavat. At the given stage, we managed to sign an agreement with the city of Salavat. I will tell about that a bit later in more detail. Here you can see just the context we live in, the situation we live in. We are taking care of our country and our republic. We would like to unite what each and every one of us has at the forefront of our minds. On the one hand, these are the efforts of the companies who are going global, preserving their international presence and standing. They include some new opportunities. And also the municipalities, which are the points of growth for interaction with the population to promote the given policy on improving the quality of life. We analyzed our economy and we chose the given companies. Well, this is just some preliminary data because each company has a holding structure and a strategy which is formed not by Bashkortostan local offices but at the federal level. You can see the points of growth based on which we can interact. Our main idea is we want to integrate. We want the large companies to integrate in their strategies the development of municipalities. I will give one example. I will say it verbally. Unfortunately, it's not available in the presentation. Nowadays, municipality is a factor which it's kind of a distractive factor for large companies, irritating factor, because on the one hand, they are there to preserve the environment where the companies work in and economic potential needs to be provided. What we do, what we're trying to do, if we analyze the strategy of one of the market leaders and we found out that the policy of wages includes that they are paying only 20% to the salary, additionally to the average salary of the region. And if we take the industry data, it leads to a situation that in other regions, in the same companies or similar companies, the wages is higher. And this policy that, well, there is a strategic goal, strategic idea, but it leads to a disproportion that professionals leave the area which is followed by their families, and as a result we have program in demography. There is an outflow of qualified experts. People go where they are demanded, where their skills are demanded. And the company which is supposed to develop in the given region, it will suffer from a lack of qualified manpower. One of the projects which we have already started to implement, cooperation with the city of Salavat, more tight cooperation. Today we have a representative of Salavat. We will give you a draft of our agreement today. This is what we started to do, and I'd like to say we have very good relations with Salavat. There are some issues, of course. We made a research and we found out the demands that the city of Salavat has. And sometimes both business and municipality, they don't hear each other very often. Well, the strategy of development of municipality is not in line with the strategy of a major industrial company which is present in the region. For Salavat, it's important to implement the sustainable development strategies. Well, I will not go in too much detail here. I hope we will be able to achieve agreement with Gazprom, Neftekhim, Salavat, both at federal level and regional level. Also, Salavat Glass Company also is one of the candidates with whom we're trying to negotiate, trying to streamline the strategies between municipalities. We had several interviews. We did some mapping. You saw it on the screen. The main issue, the main challenge is that we should change the situation. We shouldn't be asking. We shouldn't be begging for something. We should make sure that the strategy is advantageous for all the stakeholders, including the population. Thank you very much. I would like to thank Salavat for an open petition. I would like to invite Rail and give him a draft of our agreement.
Yes, distinguished colleagues, thank you very much. We hope that this joint work will be fruitful. There is a disparity between the urban environment development and what Dilara has mentioned. It is severe. We have the urban environment of the Soviet era, and the industry is being intensified. Here, the small business is lost because the unemployment rate is low, the wages are high, and people shouldn't be concerned with the ways to earn money. That is why this disparity is visible. There are few public catering points. Stерлitamak has more advanced urban environment, and our people like heading for it at the weekend, and they pay their funds there. Although these funds are earned in Salavat, these challenges are visible, and that is prerequisite for the demographic outflow and a low birth rate. We have this cluster of problems, let alone the environmental ones. That's why we rely on this cooperation. Thank you. Dear colleagues, thank you very much for finalizing this session. With this agreement, I wish you success. I wish success to the city of Salavat. I would like to express my gratitude to the Center for Strategic Development of the Republic of Bashkortostan for the superb organization of this session. I would like to thank Darzalia Farislamova. A round of applause to her. I would like to thank all the speakers who were present at the hall, who were both online and offline, and our today's discussion testifies to the fact that Agenda 2030 is a backlog of issues, and we cannot do without partnership. Ural and the representative of the city of Salavat has mentioned that this implies the progress, and see you later. Thank you very much.